All right. Another unicorn chef, Maggie MacAlpine, coming to you live if you're watching with us. Otherwise, you're watching it recorded, and it's still just as awesome. Maggie, I've known for quite a few years, has done a lot of work, which seems very pertinent for 2020. Those of you watching this in 2025, of course, will be able to tell us like, it wasn't that big a deal, but that's fine. We were really worried about election security this year, and she's a big part of that. So relevant to that, first of all, Maggie, what is our charity for the night?
Well, tonight I shared the Election Integrity Foundation. That one's great too. But basically, this is the nonprofit we're kind of in the process of renaming it right now to the Voting Village, because that's what everyone refers to us as anyway. And it was kind of our fault for not calling it the Voting Village from the beginning. Our bad. So basically, it funds our ability to go to various places, states, conferences, constituents, and educate them on, roughly voting machine hacking, but also other security measures too. So like, this is us doing the DEF CON Village. This is us doing AvengerCon. This is us doing RSA this year. And basically we finally got that in order just in time to be in a pandemic. So that's our store for right now. I don't know if it has a direct donation button, but you can get a little like face mask and then donate after that, or just buy a face mask. So I think, that's our store. And that should get us some cash, I guess, to help run our stuff.
So we've got in the black all the time up now. And we are about to kick off the cooking part where we hand it over. First question is, Maggie, what are you drinking?
I am making what is called a modified cornstarch martini, which is great. But it's without the vodka because I would like to be coherent during this. But it's basically passion fruit, a bit of vanilla, simple syrup, and Prosecco. Normally there'd be vodka too. It's very popular in London.
So what are we doing?
We are making chicken vindaloo without an Instant Pot, which is how I usually make it. So this will be an adventure for everyone a little bit. I'm a big spice fanatic. I love spicy food. So I thought I'd make something really spicy. Hopefully this will be really spicy. It's been marinating all night. We'll see.
Mine is a little bit less spicy because I'm going to try to tempt my teenager to eat it.
It's a good idea.
So I did not add the chili flakes.
Did you do like crushed red pepper? Because that's what I did.
Did I do
crushed red pepper?
I did a rice vinegar instead of the white wine vinegar. Cumin, curry mix, ginger, cinnamon, coriander, and smoked paprika, because I just think smoked paprika adds like an element to everything. And a little bit of just regular ground pepper.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to. I didn't modify it much, not that much. I like I said, I had crushed red pepper. It's been marinating overnight. And my question to you earlier was, do we want to do the marinade again? Because I have some lamb in the fridge that I could create the marinade for, just have that sit overnight next. So that we do that whole cooking show. Like, look, it's done.
Yeah, show us the marinade. Okay,
sure. All right, I have to pull up the actual list, so because I unfortunately have not memorized it. But yeah, I have all my spices already out so that you don't have to watch me running back and forth to the pit to the pantry. That was all planned amazingly. So there we go. All right, we'll start with the white wine. This is just, I'm sure there's going to be something that's going to happen and someone's going to tell me, my God, how could you do such a horrific thing? Because I used to live in New York City and I didn't have to cook as much. And now I cook because I live in New Hampshire. And if I want good Indian food or Ethiopian food, I have to make it. And that's what I've been doing lately.
Ben from our audience has already commented that he used habanero, but.
Nice. Habanero is a tough one for me. Like some spices I'm totally cool with. And then there's others that that just do me in. And I think like habanero is kind of one of them. So anyway, I'm mincing some garlic here. I'm doing it the fancy way too, not using the jar, which I would normally do because I would want to impress everybody. With the first time ever using my mincer.
Wait, that's the first time you've ever used the mincer?
Pretty much.
So normally
always have-
how I do garlic for that is you get like a garlic press and you can just throw the cloves in and just.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's probably smart.
And it just
like I said,
squeezes it out.
That makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I'm building up my kitchen from the ground up since moving to New Hampshire, so there might be some stuff that is very basic and that I don't even know is basic yet. So this is supposed to be, like we said, six cloves of minced garlic. Normally, I would just pull it out of a jar.
Well, we appreciate your effort versus the spoon and jar.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be more delicious this way, by the way. I've heard that there's some elitism around that, so I'm sure there's a reason for it. Let's see.
All right, so you're mincing your garlic.
Yeah, and then I'm going to go down the list of crushed red pepper, turmeric, cumin, paprika, coriander, cinnamon. I'm using Coleman's mustard powder, and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to probably just pour it straight into a plastic bag, as fancy as that is, so that I can just throw the meat on top of it and then throw that in the fridge, which is what I did with the chicken last night. So that it would be nice. The other thing I did with the chicken to save steps was I got pre-cut chicken fingers. They're just a little bit easier to handle, trim down for this sort of thing. Because they're always, it's Indian food. They're always going to ask it to be like bite-sized, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to toss that in my sink. All right, what's next? Okay, 2 tablespoons of crushed red pepper chili powder. I don't know how much people can see, but this is my
eyeball things on this show.
Yeah. I figure if I narrate a certain amount, it's probably fine.
A dash of this, a dash of that.
I'm not quite at the state yet. I'm not quite confident enough yet as a cook to just be like, yeah, let's throw in another thing of this. It'll be fine. I just closed that when it was not ready to be closed yet. But I'm starting to get that way a little bit, at least with spices, to the everlasting discomfort of people who eat my food.
The best part about a broadcast of food is nobody else eats it than you. So you can just be like, best thing ever.
This is the greatest.
This is the greatest. Try it at home. And those of you who are trying it at home, hashtag Unicorn Chef, share us what you think about Maggie's recipe.
Yeah. Oh no. Publicly shame her. I am going to use squeezed ginger instead of anything like freshly grated, because I've tried that before and it's for the birds. I did not enjoy it.
Freshly grated ginger?
Yeah, it just like took forever.
So there are some tricks to that. And probably the easiest is it also comes in a tube.
Yeah, I'm just using the tube is what I'm saying. Like I always just use the tube.
Yeah.
My one tip, if anybody is actually following along besides Bryson, is respect the turmeric because it stains everything. So don't put anything like fancy, like that isn't metal next to it, or add it last, or whatever you're gonna do, because my fingernails are still stained from last night. Because I foolishly mixed the chicken in with it, like by hand, like I put it, and they were clean, obviously, but that was a mistake on my part. That was a big mistake.
Why'd you use your hands? So the way I always do a marinade is I just throw everything in and then I just shake it a lot.
Because it was like 1 a.m. and I was just like, whatever.
Why are you marinating chicken at 1 a.m?
I mean, I was up till 3, so it wasn't that late. What am I on? I'm on ginger. No, I'm not. I'm on turmeric. That's why I brought it up. I got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and
okay.
That's what I'm doing these days.
You have the new Xbox or PS5?
No, I don't have the PS5. I'm on the PS4 right now, but
okay. So
I mean, if anybody's got a hookup to a PS5, they can put that in the chat, because as far as I understand, they're like sold out, like everywhere.
Keenan recommends using baking soda to wash out those fingernails.
Good idea. You may notice my messiness with spices is just like doing the spice teaspoon over it so that if it goes in extra, then it'll be mine. All right. So, yeah, so Valhalla's been good. I'm a big history buff, so the Assassin's Creed games are kind of like right up my alley.
I don't know the storyline for Valhalla, but I feel like everything with Vikings is pretty much made up.
Well, actually, no, they're doing it in England. So it's actually about, it's sort of quasi-mythical, but not really. It's like Alfred the Great and his, fights with the sons of Ragnar, which is covered in Norse sagas and in English history. So it's the Dark Ages, so it's definitely pretty fuzzy, but it's not like totally made up in quite the way that
we picked a few historical figures and then we assassinated a bunch of people around it. Got it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people were dying at the time, so it probably wouldn't have gotten that much commentary. The bigger thing is, of course, the idea the assassins didn't exist yet. That came from around the time of the First Crusade. Was the actual where the term assassin comes from, and it was intercity, actually inter-brother conflict for the most part, and then there's some crazy cult got mixed up in it.
I kind of feel like the Assassin's Creed series was just stealing from Skyrim with this one.
Yeah, I'm sure. More like
it was better than the Black Plague edition where you just sign on and everybody dies.
Yeah, at least 50%. That got a little too real. All right, I think that's everything. That is everything. Great. I can actually drop that for now, and I can mix this. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shame because I would have liked to have played the first one, but I'm such a graphics snob that I'm like just kind of coming. This is the second Assassin's Creed game I've ever played. I played the Odyssey, which was like uniquely made just for me. So this is my second foray into it. I don't know. We don't have to talk about video games the whole time. It's just what's been on it's just what I did last night till 3 a.m.
I would think our nerd audience does not have a problem with video games. And
okay.
They're all getting pretty upset about my comment about calling Vikings mythical.
They're not mythical, but they're certainly like you can definitely dispute some things. The sagas are
disputes about how much Vikings were about pillaging and rampaging versus they were traders at sea.
Well, there was also a prayer that monasteries put out during that time, which was and shield us, O Lord, from the wrath of the Northmen. So it was a big enough deal that like a regular part of the Lord's Prayer became and protect us from the Vikings. So they weren't just traders.
But I mean, people back then were very xenophobic too. I mean, there are a lot of ways that we can interpret this. I'm enjoying watching our chat blow up on this, by the way.
Oh, my what?
Our chat. So you can't see it, but the chat is literally blowing up all about the Vikings in the video games right now.
Yes. I think my bigger issue with it was more that when I first like started playing the first 10 minutes of the game, and I was just like, this just looks exactly like the History Channel fictional show Vikings, which was also about the same family and roughly the same time with Ragnar Lothbrok and the sons of Ragnar. My issue with it was just like, oh man, they're putting them in like black leather and it's all very like machismo, and like there's actually quite a lot of evidence that the Vikings were wearing bright blue and bright yellow and bright red. And were very well groomed, and they weren't doing crazy face tattoos. That would be the pics. Like that's all later stuff added to it look cool.
You're saying they didn't grow like long beards?
And they had beards certainly, but they always make them like have these crazy like mohawks and like braids and stuff. And it's like I think that's just like a visual thing that later modern film did to make them look cool.
Well, for those of you at home who want to see what that looks like, in December, I will be doing a charity fundraiser, your charity of choice. And the top choices will get to choose how this all gets cut. If you want a mohawk or ridiculous hair, this is your chance.
It is your chance.
Because apparently that was historically accurate for Vikings.
I know that my colleague Harry Hursty once told me that in Finland, at least, which again, very importantly, not Vikings. They're not even technically like Scandinavian, not even slightly genetically. But they had a way of punishing men who lied, where if you were caught in a lie, you would shave your beard off. And that's why, like, the length of your beard was a mark of your trustworthiness. And it was great shame to have it cut short.
I am most trustworthy.
The most trustworthy person in the world.
No, that would be Jack Daniel, as far as I know.
That's a very, I don't know, isn't he kind of a perennial liar? Like, you can definitely dance, said Jack Daniels. Or am I missing, is this a different Jack?
That's a different Jack.
Okay. I thought it was making a reference to, like, alcohol.
You can vote Mohawk. You have to buy Mohawk. Just saying that back to the chat there.
You had to give a lot of money to a charity.
Yep. There are people who want to pool money together to figure this out. So I'm just letting you know what you're competing against.
I'm just trying to get this all in, all this. So I would like to do this with lamb next. And I found that my supermarket doesn't always have it, but sometimes it has like stew lamb, which is like perfect for making Indian food. And that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm covered in blood. This is how I like my coffee. The Izzard paraphrase there. But yeah, this is just the marinade thing, and then we're gonna pull aside the chicken, and I'm gonna start cooking that up and doing that properly. And probably around the same time, I'll throw everything in the rice maker too.
Okay, so your lamb is marinating, and that means we're gonna move on from the preparation demonstration for the marinade to the cooking of the chicken.
Yes, which is gonna be a fair amount of just simmering from the look of it. That might actually eat up a lot of the time, but I obviously have to keep an eye on it. But it should free me to also just chat if you have any questions about I mean, I don't know. I mean, Bryson, you're not going to have a lot of questions about the election because you and very high level people who have been in the news lately hang out a lot. So you're not going to have like a genuine question for me that your friends can't answer. Unless you have questions about New Hampshire.
That's fair. I do have some insider knowledge on things. However, it's interesting. So one of our audience here, Ben, is a poll worker. Or was a poll worker. Sorry. That was
my brother in arms.
And Maggie, you were also a volunteer poll worker.
I was several times.
That's a great question. Tell us about your experience as a poll worker.
Well, I will say I've been it 4 times. Once was twice in New York City and twice now in New Hampshire, where I've moved to, where I grew up. And New Hampshire is much better. New York City is awful to be a poll worker. By comparison, it's just extremely stressful, and the hours are extremely long versus here. But it's good, you know. I mean, it's a great way to help your community. Most people don't know you get paid in most places, like a couple $100, albeit probably not market rate for everyone. But for like the 12-hour day, it works out to be. But it's certainly nothing to sneeze at. It's not just asking you to suffer all day for nothing and except the warm fuzzy feeling. So yeah, I highly recommend people do it. And I especially recommend people do it who have opinions about elections in the cybersecurity community of like, well, why don't they just do it this way? Why don't they just use proton mail? That'll solve everything. Or like people right now who are very hysterically saying that like the poll workers are stealing the election. Like, if you're so gosh darn concerned, why don't you become a poll worker and see how these things are in real life? So that would be definitely my recommendation to just everybody. And if you have like a captive 17-year-old, you should definitely force them to do it too, because it's a really great way to like be introduced to your community and to, in general, just like help out, get to know people, learn a little more about the civic process, make a little bit of money. Genuinely, I think everybody should. I don't quite want to put the jury duty onus on it because I know that's a negative association, but it is a little like jury duty in that you feel like everybody should do it once, just to like see how everything works from the inside.
That's my recommendation, because the election process is bipartisan.
Yeah.
Right? And so there are over 8,000 voting jurisdictions throughout the United States. This is not something that the U.S. government runs. This is something that is a federated process run by both parties or no parties and volunteers and civil bureaucrats at the local, state, and federal level. And you can absolutely get involved and see what's happening for yourself.
Yeah. You don't have to speculate breathlessly about how it's being stolen.
Ben calls it out here. Ben says this, like, so true. I wish folks with strong ideas about how elections work would go and work with the polls once or twice. And you are spot on. That is the exact first thing I ask everybody. I'm like, well, have you done it? Have you volunteered?
Yeah.
And usually the conversation goes somewhere else from there because they don't have an answer. They haven't gone and done it. They haven't seen it for themselves.
Yeah, like, I mean, so I had to do some like hand tallying of international votes, UOCAVA votes that came in, and we were counting those kind of close to the end of the night because we were clipping along. We were getting stuff done here in New Hampshire. We were out by almost the normal time, and I was reading them off the ballot, and the woman who was working with me was a Republican because every single pair that does any kind of counting is always one Republican and one registered Democrat. Now, in New Hampshire, I prefer to be undeclared, but I had to pick a party in order to work as a poll worker, so that you can have these balances of one registered this, one registered that. New Hampshire is unique in having the undeclared option, and a lot of people prefer it. But my point is, it's bipartisan. Like, every step of this process is bipartisan. So this idea that there's just like an evil cabal of the other party doing all the work where no one can see is like, it's just uninformed. It's very uninformed to how these things work. All right. I think we are now at the part where I start the oven up. So, the stove top. Yay! So, that one's not very visible. This one's a little more visible. We'll do that. There. Perfect. And I'm going to cheat again. I have decided I am not going to cook. I'm not going to chop an onion. I'm going to get a pre-chopped one because I hate chopping onions.
Wait, how do you? I didn't even know they made pre-chopped onions.
Oh, my store has them. It's a Hannaford. But I can wait a second. I have to chop the peppers anyway. So this is just to save myself a step.
All right. Well, so we should be heating up our pan now.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I have to actually, I do have to chop these peppers real quick, and I do need to determine if I'm supposed to take the seeds out. It doesn't say anywhere.
Take the seeds out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm gonna need, therefore, just a second to.
Everybody can take me tomorrow.
Yeah.
By the way, what are we mixing with the tomato paste to make it thicker?
I have some chicken stock in there. I was probably gonna use that. But if I don't know if I have an entire amount needed. I don't know if I have an entire half cup left. If I don't, I'll cut it with water. But
So my favorite cheat for chicken stock is the better than bouillon.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. I have like bone broth in there too, but it's like gelatin. It's really thick. I don't know if I want to use that. Basically.
Yeah, I don't typically have bone broth on my hands until the winter because that's usually when I'm rendering lots of roasted bones.
Yeah, I liked to have it when I go LARPing in the woods because it's like a really quick way to heat up and hydrate and feel better, to have like a little stew of that and literally just drink it. But I might be a barbarian in that respect. And there's no LARPing this year anymore, which makes me very sad. All right, I'm just taking out the guts of the serrano peppers right now. So I don't think I'm out of frame. I'm a little out of frame. Should probably.
All right, I'm going to drain my marinade.
Oh, nice. You're a little bit ahead of me. I feel like I'm in a race. Also pausing to wash my hands occasionally because have peppers all over them. I'd rather not touch my eye.
Ben, how do you not have chicken bouillon of any kind in your possession? This is crazy.
How much olive oil did it call for? 2 tablespoons. I mean, not that it really matters, but. Kind of planning on killing this off, so that was perfect. That was exactly 2 tablespoons. Nice. Okay. Now I'm chopping. Hopefully you don't watch me go to the hospital live on camera. That would be unfortunate.
Mark.
You broke up there a little bit.
What's that? Oh, that's a benchmark. Not getting hurt.
You broke up there just a little bit. So I couldn't tell if you were laughing at me.
No, I was just saying that's a benchmark. Not going to the hospital while you cut.
Yeah.
For those of you at home wondering what I am drinking, I am drinking.
Don't cut like me.
Pacifico beer. Very basic Mexican beer. So I had a whiskey happy hour right before this, so I figured I would settle it down just a skosh.
Yeah, I was thinking of switching to a beer while we chatted, but I just had like a mimosa, the same type I'm having now. I figured I can handle it, but this is definitely the moment of truth with chopping things up. On just how wrong I might be.
Hey, if you don't cut yourself, you earn a drink.
Yes, exactly. That's like that's a really advanced level of like drinking game where you're like, if you don't go to the hospital, take a drink. Yeah, get in there. I did. Okay. So we're going to do that for what, like 4 or 5 minutes, they say?
What are we doing for 4?
Like I said, I usually, yeah. This is on a medium heat. Cool. And then I get out my chicken. Actually, while that's warming still, I might get out my can opener. I'm trying to like juggle cool stuff. What I might actually do too, right about now, is start soaking my rice. I probably should have done that sooner, but I don't think you have to soak basmati quite as much as some other types. Get out of there. Come on. There we go. Taste is there.
Ben is bragging about his Hendrick's Orbium gin. I have been trying to get that same gin on order for months, and it's always out whenever I do it. So enjoy, sir.
Yeah, is this a Ben I know, or is it just
no?
Like
You don't
Ben?
know Ben. Not that Ben's not worth knowing. You don't know that Ben. I'm pretty sure.
I just don't know this Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just rinsing the rice. If I'm off camera, I'm right here. I should probably start mixing this.
What got you into election security to begin with?
The recession in 2009. But no, seriously. Yeah, I was job searching for about 8 months after I graduated college, and I ended up at a little company called Clear Ballot Group in Boston as their first intern, and eventually became an employee. Along with Harry Hursty, the creator of their technology and their founder, and was very pleased at the cross-section of sort of activism is a little too strong a word, but the feeling of like making a difference, like doing something for our election security felt, pleasingly important for my recent graduate self. And I worked with them for kind of their first year. I was kind of their first employee. And then Hari and I left to go work on another company he had done the prototypes for, another security company, in part because Clear Ballot was struggling to get clients at the time, so it was sort of a temporary thing, and it became a permanent thing. We left permanently and parted ways over some internal disagreements, and it's not nearly as dramatic. It's not that dramatic, really. But that was how I got into election security originally, and I sort of accidentally became an expert on a, like almost on a high level with some pretty niche stuff, but like nobody else was doing it, like scanning ballots at high speeds. And just like getting to know the election security process and things like that. And then I came back to it. I did some pro bono work in between. And then in 2016, Hari and I got back into the game because people were like caring about it again for some reason. 2015, rather. No, 2016. It was 2016. Because people were caring about it again for some reason. And sort of stuck it out there. And that was obviously in 2017, we did the voting village, which is in itself a bit of a funny story of how that began. Specifically, we were sitting having lunch for work, and I was just on Twitter, as I want to do, and I looked down and I said, "Oh, gee, that's weird. Jeff Moss just announced that they're doing a voting machine hacking village. I wonder who the poor sap is that they got to do that." I know like everybody in the field that he knows. I know the whole cross section here, so kind of strange that we haven't heard who's going to run this. And then the call came 5 minutes later that we were the poor saps who were going to run this. Hari more specifically. So that was fun. It would have been nice if they told us before they tweeted it. But it ended up being very important, and very, very proud of that work. You know, I'm very proud of my colleagues. I'm very proud of the hackers. It's a great thing. Got a lot of attention on very important issues. So I'm gonna add the chicken and the marinade now. Let's see. Yeah, and it says to do that for about 5 minutes. Okay, and then I will add the. Please don't splatter. Now I get to find out if I accidentally made pepper spray. Which has happened to me before.
I think we'll be able to tell very quickly if you do.
Well, I had it happen once accidentally in my house, where we just made some steaks, and there was a bunch of beef grease sitting on the pan. And then the ghost pepper got added, and I was in the next room, and all of a sudden I started coughing, and my eyes started watering, and it's because the ghost pepper and the grease had combined, and it was filling the house with basically a proto pepper spray. So that was good. All right, so that's we're gonna do this for 5 minutes, and then we're gonna add the tomato paste, which I've opened, so it's ready to go. I'm gonna set actually like a little timer because I am desperately bad at keeping time on my own. And then we're gonna add the tomato paste, cook a little more, and then we're gonna add the chicken broth. And then it's just simmering pretty much. So, look at that, it looks so nice.
So how do you feel about how about 2020 went?
Is it over yet?
Election security perspective.
Well, I would first say it's not over yet. There's still a lot of legal challenges happening, and I say that to both sides. This is completely nonpartisan commentary here. There are still legal challenges going on. I thought it was very interesting to hear. Basically, it doesn't look. I will say that how do I say this? The attacks that are being leveled at it about voter fraud and like paper ballot based issues. In that respect, it's absolutely true. I think it's one of the most secure we've had. The mail-in ballots is quite a boon to recounts. It's a boon to some less trackable systems that we had so many paper ballots come in. And that's really great. And I really hope that the states will continue to expand mail-in voting access, because I think it was great for a lot of people. A lot of states limit it to people over the age of 65. That said, I don't want to be partisan in saying, and this is just a simple statement of fact. I mean, and anybody in cybersecurity can tell you this. There's a waiting time before you know if there's been a breach. So just blanket saying there was no breach. Maybe there wasn't. I don't know. I don't think there was, but we don't know. And it would be dishonest of me to say no. But that there's definitely not one in any race. I don't know. I really, the problem, and this is the problem you keep running into with election security, right? Is that half the people are always happy, or there's always a winning side. So those people don't want to relitigate. The losers want to relitigate. You know, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of passion. It's why most auditing, most pilots, most stuff that my firm doesn't happen until like an election off year in the middle of the summer or something. And we've got to thread like this really tightrope of saying, do you think something happened? Well, no. Do I welcome the opportunity to have forensics look at, voting machines just in general? Yes, it's completely irrespective of the current election to say that. So I would say it kind of depends on what you mean by the election. Like the processes, the paper, the people, the outcome, did it match the exit polling? Did it do this? Yeah. I mean, my firm was involved in the Jill Stein recount. So I can't in good conscience say something like they're not allowed to have a recount. They're allowed to have a recount. In fact, we've learned very many interesting things every time there's a recount. For example, how hard it is to have a recount was something we learned in 2016.
That's actually a good segue to risk limited auditing.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I hope that risk limiting audits become a big thing after this, because this is exactly the nightmare scenario that risk limiting audits was really supposed to address.
So first,
like, was there a tabulation error? What?
Explain what it is. What is RLA?
It's like a ballot. It's like it's a ballot polling audit. It's basically a statistical magic where you pull a specific number of randomized ballots and you set the amount of certainty you want. Let's say 90%. I want to be 90% certain. And how many ballots, given the number of ballots cast, given the margin of victory for one issue or person, do I need to pull to have a reasonable statistical expectation according to this formula devised by Dr. Philip Stark of UC Berkeley? Do I need to be reasonably assured that the outcome is correct? And we want it's a very cheap and easy, it's a relatively easy, very cheap compared to many other solutions, way of checking that the tabulation in the machine picked the right, reflects the ballots, the winner of the ballots. And we've been wanting to have that implemented for every race because we don't want somebody to have to cast aspersions on the election to request something like that. It should just be routine. And for large margins of victory, it's really not very many ballots. If it was a 99-1 race, right, you wouldn't have to pull very many ballots to know that, it was overwhelmingly the other person, the 99 that won. The problem is if it's in that 0.001 category, margin of one side or the other, you're basically looking at just a total recount. So it does have its limitations. But overall, though, whenever somebody's like, how can you be certain that this election's tabulation was correct? We have to say, honestly, as academics, we don't know. We don't have a second check on this system in place, but we have a system we would like to use routinely and above suspicion. And we'd like to do that much more often. And if we did that, then you wouldn't have to cast aspersions on the election every time you think maybe something went wrong in the process. So that is the ideal. That process began in 2009 was when risk limiting audits were first put out in the world stage. And our optimistic timelines for nationwide adoption was 2025 because elections are extremely slow moving. I always call them a leap year birthday because people only care about them every 4 years. And then everything just kind of used to go to a standstill in between. So that would be great if this, it's hard not to be cynical, but it would be great if this sudden interest in having a risk limiting audit translated to policy and to wider adoption. But again, it's such a passionate issue. It's such a passionate time right now. It's very hard to see where it's all going to turn out. And that's what I mean in part two when I say the election's not over yet. So we'll see.
If you had your druthers about election security, you could make anything happen just like that. What would you do?
Certainly risk limiting audits, getting everybody onto paper ballots, hand marked if you don't have a disability. And this is where I somewhat differ from, there's a sort of a fanatical fringe that says, always hand marked paper ballots, always. And I understand it's a very catchy slogan, but there are people who genuinely can't hand mark their paper ballots, either because of something with their motor control or they might be blind. So there is a place in the world for non-hand marked paper ballots, but it should be limited to those in need because of the vulnerabilities that are added with that new convenience of not marking it yourself. But overall, yeah, so hand marked paper ballots, risk limiting audits everywhere. I would there's definitely some process stuff just from a voter perspective that I would love to add. Like I would love that, mail-in balloting gets expanded as long as people have an in-person place to vote if they want to. I would love same-day registration. One thing that's really scaring the heck out of me is all the online voter registration databases. What do we do if somebody gets their polling place scrambled or their name respelled or their address? Because the onus is so much on the voter. We always assume the voter did something wrong if they show up to vote and it says that they're not registered. Especially with, with purges and all sorts of other things, but also genuinely, I'm afraid of when a voter registration database is going to get hacked. People's names are going to get taken off. If you have same-day voter registration, like New Hampshire has, then that goes from a catastrophe to a minor inconvenience. And so that would be another thing that I would love if I could just wave a magic wand to have implemented everywhere. But there's so many things. I mean, certainly we're seeing some movement with vendors being more open. There's a lot of parallels between the medical industry and their aversion to hackers of medical equipment and the evolution of like the relationship with vendors and election security specialists and hackers, in that it's very acrimonious at first, and there's a lot of bad feeling, there's a lot of lawsuits, there's a lot of just flat out hatreds, and often with good reason, because there's a lot of intimidation tactics. And eventually, hopefully, that relationship becomes better and good things happen. But like, definitely, we've, as the Voting Village, have had, probably rightfully so, hackers and specialists come to us and say, how dare you speak to this person? Because this person sent the cops to our door and like ruined our lives. And you have to be like, I can't justify their actions, but I'm giving them a place to speak to the community. Am I doing the right or wrong thing? We don't necessarily know in the moment. But nothing's going to change if people don't talk. But I don't pretend that we always get it right, like how to handle that, because like we got sued. I mean, we got sued by ES&S in our first and second year, I want to say. And we were just very fortunate to have pro bono lawyers, some of the best in the country, on our side to protect us. So like, we understand when people are like, how dare you speak to that person who threatens us? And we're like, well, because they're the machine vendors and nothing's going to change if we don't get these people to start having more robust security. And, internally as well, not just in their machinery.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a challenge that we've seen throughout cybersecurity for several decades, is that there is it's a contentious relationship between the independent security research community and vendors who, it's just a lot more convenient if nobody really like poked holes in what we got.
Right, exactly. And also we might send lawyers after you.
Well, that's that's how corporations respond to things.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have added tomato paste, and
Yep.
I'm starting to make my sauce now.
Yep, I'm adding the water, or rather, I'm adding chicken broth right now. All right, let's do this. Yeah. Never know what to do with the tomato paste after, because they always are like, you need 1 tablespoon. I'm like, well, I've got like a can here.
So you're not going to use
throw
the
it out.
entire can. So one of the things that I picked up is you can actually get tomato paste also in a tube. So you don't like use half the can and then like are stuck with it to go bad, because that always happens to me.
Yep.
So with the tube, I don't have that problem.
All right. Looks like we're at the simmer stage where I reduce the heat, and that means I can start prepping my rice, which is great. It's been sitting there soaking. Yay, Vindaloo. I love Vindaloo. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. This is the first time I'm ever gonna have a vindaloo that's not spicy. I'm kind of curious how it comes out.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, it's usually spicy, but it doesn't have to be necessarily. It's definitely not a korma though. A korma is where you want to go if you want something not too hot. I made that just the other day. Just like coconut milk.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say it's creamier with coconut milk.
Yeah. I did have I had something that wasn't a vindaloo and it wasn't a Rogan Josh. It was something I've never seen before or since in London over Christmas last year, which was so hot it made the marrow of my jawbone feel hot. Like it went through my teeth into my jawbone marrow and burned. Which was delightful. I've never had anything like it before or since. And the most fun part, by far, was watching the men in my family decide that being a man meant they could handle hot spices and not just long practice, because that's what it actually takes. Spice does not care about your gender. It cares about how much spice you eat. And they're from they're white Irish Catholics. What did they think was going to happen? 2 cups, 3/4.
All right, so my sauce is going pretty good here.
Yep, I'm just like I said, mine's just simmering right now. I'm going to throw my rice into my Instant Pot. I'm going to throw a little bit, and this is a tip I've seen. I'm always trying to figure out how to do rice better because I always screw it up somehow. But I throw a little ghee in with it because I've heard that is a good way to improve it.
What did you say? You throw ghee?
Yeah, with the rice.
Yeah, I just use butter.
Yeah, I mean, not non-salted butter is also fine, or salted butter even. Just use a regular spoon here. I don't really have a plan for how much to throw in. So like that much in. That looks good. You guys didn't miss the part where I spent like an hour scrubbing my kitchen before this. Everything is immaculate.
We can see how immaculate it is. Those beer magnets on the fridge are just the cleanest I've ever seen.
They are very clean. Yes, we are a microbrewing household. If you haven't determined that from the magnets, so like beer tourism type stuff. Yay! Just making sure that's not causing any problems. I should probably have set a timer for this.
No, you're cooking. Just feel it.
That's true. Said the devil on my shoulder.
I'm not the devil on your shoulder. I'm just the guy wearing red flannel, like on the other end of the StreamYard.
You can dance. Is it not turned on? Oh, it's interesting. Maybe it's not. There we go. All right.
The fragrance of this simmering is just delightful. All
Yay!
of the spices, it's fantastic.
I'm so glad. Okay, there we go. Cool. Yeah, I think we're good. We are doing well here. We're at the coasting part. We can talk about, I don't know. Were I there in person, I'd be like, well, enough about me. Why don't you talk about me for a bit? No. What's going on with your life? But I don't know if that's the format of your.
No, we're showcasing you, Maggie, not me.
No. Right, mine. Well, I'm trying to think. What else would you like to talk about? Because like literally, it's just me watching.
All right. Well, so you're into Dungeons and Dragons.
I am. That's where I'm going after this. I'm a huge nerd. I LARP. I play D&D. I used to do a longsword choreography club in high school. I did Ren Fair volunteering during college. I'm pretty much a jack of all nerddom. in that respect. So all the things that are now public that I would never tell in a job interview are out there.
So, well, all right. Well, now that, I mean, 2020 is almost in the books. What's next for you?
For me,
yeah.
Well, like I said, we're doing my firm is going to be doing an audit pilot for New Hampshire later this year, which is great. It's great to actually do something for elections that isn't poll working, because this, contrary to what many people think, not a lot of election like research work happens updating really happens during the election. They're generally a little too busy for that, actually running the election. So there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of awareness, there's a lot of volunteering and being on standby in case the unthinkable happens, but not a lot of just like going in and doing a security review or like implementing risk limiting audits unless you're Georgia. So like, yeah, we're going to be doing that audit pilot for New Hampshire. We're doing some cybersecurity education for some other stuff too. I will maybe someday write my book. I don't know. That'll probably never happen. Really, I think we're all just sort of, everyone's just sort of coming down from this like year of election stuff. It's just a lot. It's a lot to handle. In a good way, it's very heartening to see so many people care about this issue. Definitely they didn't, like back in 2010 when I got into this world. It was like watching paint dry to talk about it. Only people also just didn't understand why you were talking about it. And now like people care, which is kind of great.
I mean, I feel like you were in an HBO documentary that debuted this year.
Yes, I was. Oh yeah, it feels like, is it still 2020? Yeah, in March.
I know it was 8 months ago.
Yeah, it feels like it. So yeah, in March in 2020, this year was supposed to be a big year for me. I was going to be in an HBO documentary, and like all this stuff was coming together like all at once. You're going to have like DEF CON, you're going to do all this stuff, and now everything's on whatever. But yes, so Kill Chain came out, which we'd been working on for about 4 years, and which I very honestly many times didn't think was ever going to come out because of how long we were working on it, and just the way that film works. But yeah, it came out, and it's about ironically vulnerabilities in the Georgia machines, which have since, I think they got rid of those exact machines. They've got a new machine that there's lawsuits about because it's not that much better, and in some ways might be worse, but at least it has a paper trail, unlike the old one. And that's the biggest, wow of that documentary. But we also talk about things like, you could just buy a voting machine and hack it at DEF CON, which we do. And there's a lot of, my headphones just told me that they're running low on battery. So I hesitated there. So yeah, I think the best part I have in that documentary is I make a very strange face at one point, about a third of the way in. The guy's just like, hey, can we buy like a bunch of voting machines from you for cash and ship them anywhere in the world? Like, no questions asked. I was just like, yeah. And I went like, that's probably my best part of the entire documentary.
So that was at an asset disposal facility, because asset disposal is key. And y'all went to one of these junkyards. It was like, so could we like buy these? And he like takes you through a tour of them, and you're just like, so we can just like take these voting machines?
Yep.
He's like, yeah, that sounds good. Like,
that sounds fine. Why not?
You're paying cash, right?
Well, we asked to pay cash because we wanted to know if we could. Because, like, at least in theory, with a credit card,
there's
something could be tracked.
Not that matters after you've done it. And of course, one of the things we've learned is what is forensically available on that voting machine. Right.
Yeah. Well, that was the big scare was 2017, right? Was the e-poll books, not necessarily just the voting machines. The e-poll books had basically identity theft in a box, which was like everybody's address, their name. I think it had some of their social security on it. And it was from either Tennessee or Kentucky. And we actually had to stop in the middle of our first DEF CON and pull the founders aside, me and like Matt Blaze and the others, and be like, yo, we've got like 16,000 people's records on a device here. What do we do? And we had to like really call the police. I mean, we had to call the FBI of that state and be like, hey, we've got all of this on here and we need to responsibly disclose it. So that was fun. So what happened was that the vendor had failed to take it off before selling it. So the vendor had lent these machines to the state to pilot them and to use them in an election. And the state had returned them after. And then the vendor had, for their own reasons, I guess, just sold them again on eBay, which is where we were able to buy them without cleaning them first. And so we had tens of thousands of people's personal records just sort of sitting on a device at a hacker conference, which is not ideal. But everyone learned something, which is the important thing.
Well, it's not that they learned something. It's that they change based on what we learn.
Yeah, I hope they did. The vendor I can't speak to.
Yeah, where are we on responsible disclosure with the different vendors? Because there are 3 major vendors, ESNS, who you mentioned, Dominion, that has been famous for Trump, and then I'm just going to shorten it to HART.
Civic, yeah.
Over 80% of the voting machines in the country.
Yes, and there's a bunch of small players like Clear Ballot. They are not and Unity. They're not in enough places to be as much of an issue. We had one of those 3. I will say it wasn't Dominion or ESNS reach out and have a very positive conversation with us about possibly being part of the voting village. It didn't go anywhere, not because of unwillingness on everybody's part, but just because we needed to hammer out how disclosure would happen, and like they wanted to have NDAs and we can't have NDAs, and we were like, DARPA didn't have NDAs, you guys can't have NDAs if DARPA didn't have them. So that was all like in the 3 weeks before the conference. So it basically fell apart, in 2019 before it came to fruition. But it was positive. I mean, everybody was kind of wary and circling, but kind of sort of on the same side. Like there was somebody in the room on their side who was very excited about us, which is new.
They're coming around on it. I think they are.
The young people are. The younger people. Fine.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this again for decades.
Right.
Vendors eventually come to transparency. They just have to be forced to it.
Right. And they do it kicking and screaming, and then they blame you for making them uncomfortable. So yeah, but so we've had some positive conversations. ESNS is no longer, well, they didn't sue us this year, but that's because, I mean, one of the funniest thing about ESNS suing us was they tried to take it up with Congress, kind of. This is all roundabout, but basically Congress said as a result of the voting village, hey, ESNS, can you explain to us these vulnerabilities and what you're doing to handle them? And ESNS sent a letter back to Congress being like, don't worry about it. We're handling it. You shouldn't even pay attention to this. And Congress went, hi, we're Congress. Saying that you're handling it is not good enough. You have to come here. And that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny because the letter was immensely arrogant. Like it was jaw dropping, even as a non-voting village person. I was just like, dear Lord.
So I'm going to ask one last question because I feel like your Vindaloo will be ready by the time you answer.
Yeah. Sure.
So we've been talking about physical voting. We talked briefly about mail-in ballots. What about mobile and online voting?
No, we can't do it. We can't do it right now and have the secret ballot. That's the biggest problem. If you have created a system that you can authenticate somebody reliably in a way that they can't be faked by somebody anywhere else in the world with internet voting, and also that it's trustworthy, you have created true online currency and you're a trillionaire. So the technology needed has a big pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. The fact that that pot of gold hasn't been swooped up by anybody means that the technology does not exist. You can't be anonymous and have your vote not get lost or get changed against your will. So the technology is decades away. And no, Bitcoin does not solve it. Bitcoin doesn't solve it because it doesn't solve anything. Or sorry, blockchain.
Not
Blockchain
Bitcoin,
doesn't solve it.
blockchain.
Blockchain doesn't solve it. Sorry.
Ledgers and databases.
Yeah, blockchain's not.
Don't bring the Bitcoin bros in this. We're talking about elections, man. It's all about democracy.
Yeah, but it doesn't solve anything that we have problems with. So yeah, it's look, I worked on the Estonia report with the University of Michigan, where we went to Estonia. We looked
Why
at
is Estonia important?
Oh, they have one of the best internet voting systems in the world, according to
And digital identity.
And digital identity. Sorry, I live in New Hampshire, the most libertarian state in the country. And if you told people they're going to have a chip in their national ID and they have to have it, you will have a bloody revolt on your hands. The idea that we're just going to have that is also crazy to me.
We haven't even agreed on a national identity in this country.
Yeah, we don't have one. We kind of are trying to do real ID, but not really. The pandemic. So, so yeah, we don't have a national. We don't have even the building blocks of doing internet voting. And also, one of the funniest things personally that happened was the one company that's getting somewhere, like it's in West Virginia, votes. It's got, a pilot going. They got studied by MIT, and MIT found out there was no blockchain in their blockchain, which was fun. So, like, even the people who are saying that they're using blockchain to secure the vote, internet voting, and apps and stuff, aren't even doing what they say they're doing. But yeah, basically the problem comes down to endpoint security, among other things. There's just so many problems. The problems are simply endless. I
just want to extrapolate what that statement means. When you talk about endpoint security, it turns out that mobile phones are inherently insecure devices, and the ability to have a secure application running on an insecure environment is not a simple problem. In fact, not one that I've seen anybody outside of even voting ever solve.
Yeah, and people keep making this false equivalency to banking as if banks, don't get hacked all the time. And people don't have their money stolen from an online bank all the time. But also, your bank knows how much money you have. Know how much money I have. People know how much money I have, and it's generally okay that they know that. But I can tell you immediately that there's a lot of people out there who don't want the government to know how they voted. They don't want their neighbors or their in-laws or their boss or their future boss to know how they voted.
No. Maggie, it's even simpler than that. Like, again, take all these things to a macro and systemic level. What's the percentage of fraud in that system?
In banking? I don't know off the top of my head, dude.
1 to 5%.
Yeah, that's a big election margin.
Thank you. So that technology at that level already has risk baked into it. That's okay because we can make a financial write-off. When it comes to voting, nobody's willing to accept a 1 to 5% margin of error. Yeah. Does that mean your Vindaloo's done?
No, that was just my 15. Yeah, that was my 20-minute warning on the Vindaloo. But it's nothing bad's gonna happen. It's on low, just kind of cooking. So, yeah. But I do think it's done. I mean, I don't know if my rice is done, but. Oh,
all right. I'm ready to go when you are ready to go.
I think I'm ready. Yeah. Is that it? We don't have to sit down across from each other with forks and knives and stuff, right?
No, we don't. We're virtual. So how this ends is we plate our food and we present it. I will take a picture of it for posterity, and after that, the live stream's over, and everybody, including all of our guests here, will hopefully share #UnicornChef, and even better, hopefully contribute to tonight's charity, the Integrity Foundation.
So we can teach people about voting machines.
So everybody has a good meal and helps make the world a little bit better. And that's how we end the episode.
That's wonderful. I love that. I don't know if I'm going to plate it as nice as it deserves to be plated, but I can definitely put it on a plate.
Hey, no one's judging. No one's judging you.
I'm judging me.
I know. You're one of those people that you're your own harshest critic.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, let's throw this on here. I wish I had a little flour. much time is left on my rice? Oh, it's preheating. It's gonna be a bit.
So I jazzed up my vindaloo a little bit with spinach and cherry tomatoes.
That's a great idea. I should have done that.
I feel like everything should always have some vegetables. And I didn't cut mine up into bits. I used chicken thighs. So I sauteed my chicken thighs and got a nice golden brown.
Very nice. If I did this again, I would probably add potatoes to it. And I would probably, yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry. Potatoes.
That's it. Yeah, just potatoes. I mean, that goes in Vindaloo quite often. I just didn't feel, I didn't want to make it too complicated at 1 a.m. So, no, I gotta go this way. Okay.
Right,
it's not photogenic at all. It just tastes good.
Oh, you're gorgeous. Don't worry about it. Pish posh. Hold on. It's going to take me a second. I got to.
If it was chicken tikka masala, I could tell the story about how it's not actually from India. It's from Leeds.
Are we ready? Get in there.
Yes.
Smile. Boom. Shakalaka.
Boom.
Chicken vindaloo. Maggie MacAlpine style.
Thank you, Bryson. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. Hashtag Unicorn Chef. Contribute to the Election Integrity Foundation. Make the world a better place. Volunteer and be a poll worker or shut the fuck up.
What he said.
Boom.
Big one.
Suck it.